Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alexander Sancho, and I'm a PhD student in Imperial College London. And today I'm going to present you the first stages of my PhD project, which is based on experimental techniques for ductile damage characterization. So initially I will briefly describe ductile damage phenomenon and my research interest, and then I will go through the methodology I'm using. Finally, some experimental results I've obtained so far, and I will finish with some conclusions about these experimental results. So ductile damage, as probably all of you know, is the type of damage that appears in metallic materials when they are subjected to tensile stresses and strains. So materials initially work in the elastic regime, and when they surpass the yield stress, they enter the plastic regime, and at some point of the plastic regime, small voids and micro cracks start to appear within the material, and that's what we call ductile damage. This type of damage can appear right after plastic strain starts to accumulate, so right here, or depending on the material, it can appear after some plastic strain has accumulated. This type of damage has three phases. The first phase is called nucleation, and it's when these small voids start to appear near the inclusions within the material. The second phase is growth, when these voids grow in size, and the last one is coalesce, when the voids interact with each other, leading to a macroscopic crack that leads to failure of the component. That is exactly what we can see in these two SEM pictures of two different materials, where we can observe the fracture section and the different voids that have interacted leading to fracture. So my research interest is to experimentally measure ductile damage accumulation throughout the plastic regime, not only the fracture conditions, but the whole accumulation process in the plastic regime, and try to determine the most adequate technique to do so, and also to develop or analyze a methodology to characterize the material both in terms of plastic behavior, so flow stress versus equivalent plastic strain, and also in ductile damage, so damage versus plastic strain. And as I said before, I'm a PhD student, and this is the first phase of my project, and the second phase would be to apply this methodology to different conditions of strain rate and temperature. So to model this type of damage, three different approaches can be used. The first approach is the micromechanical, which analyzes each single void in the microscopic scale and the stresses and strains that appear in the surroundings of these voids. The second technique is the macromechanical or continuum damage mechanics. This one studies not the single defects, but the effect this damage has on the behavior of on the macroscopic behavior of the component. And the last one is the empirical approach, fracture models, which are only concerned with the fracture conditions. So in my case, I focus on the macromechanical approach, since it's quite good to represent the damage accumulation in the plastic regime. So as I said, in the continuum damage mechanics technique, we analyze the effect damage has on macroscopic properties of the material. And these are different properties that are affected by this type of damage. So one thing we can do to measure damage is monitor one of these properties, so either elastic modulus, hardness, ultrasonic velocity, or electric resistance. And by monitoring how these properties changes, we can know which is the damage in the material. Microstructure analysis, either in 2D or 3D by SEM or X-ray tomography, can also be used for this purpose, but generally is not used as a standalone technique, but rather to validate one of these previous methods. And in my presentation, I will present some results of the first two techniques, which are the ones that I have studied so far. The methodology I'm using, I'm studying stainless steel 304L material, and I'm using these specimen geometries. The first one is a normal round tensile specimen used to characterize the tensile behavior of the material. And the other one is quite different, is the hourglass shape geometry, either round or flat, depending on the methodology, on the damage measurement technique we are using. And in this case, we want a very small region there in the middle where damage is concentrated, and we want to measure only this region. And also we want stress and strain fields to be as uniform as possible in this region we are measuring. So my methodology consists of 4 steps. The first step is plastic characterization. So with the round bars, just tensile test to characterize the plastic stress-strain behavior. Then the second step is the damage measurement using one of the techniques I presented before, measure damage versus plastic strain. The third step is the stress triaxiality analysis to analyze how hydrostatic stresses affect damage, and this is done by means of round notch bar samples like this with different notch rating. And once we have this information, this experimental information, we can use it to calibrate one of the damage models. In my case, I'm using Bonora model, which is a continuum damage mechanics model, as I said before. And in this presentation, I will show you some results of these steps of the damage measurements using the 2 techniques I said before. So elastic modulus technique is a technique that has been used for many years by authors like Lemaitre or Bonora, and it consists on a tensile test, but instead of developing the tensile test in a continuous manner up to fracture, partial unloadings and reloading cycles are done at different plastic strain levels, and from the slope of these unloading reloading cycles we can measure plastic modulus and therefore damage. To measure the strain in the sample, 2 different techniques can be used. The basic technique is the small extensometer, which is placed in my gauge section, and the alternative is 3D DIC as a non-contact alternative to measure strains. So these are the results for the round specimens obtained with the extensometer for 4 different samples. We can see that they are quite repeatable, and what we observe here is the elastic modulus versus equivalent plastic strain, so a decrease in elastic modulus, and here ductile damage versus plastic strain, an increase in damage. What we observe is a very prominent increase in damage at very low values of plastic strain. This is due to the voids that appear at very early levels of plastic strain, and then this damage becomes more linear, and the rate of increase of damage decreases. This is the growth phase where voids increase in size, but new voids are no longer created at the rate that we have here. These are the results for the same test, but with flat specimens instead of round specimens. And the first thing we can observe here is that the results are much noisier. This is probably caused by the extensometer attachment system, which was not that easy as for the round samples. But the trend they follow is the same, so we have an initial big increase in damage and then progressive decrease in rate of damage, and we also have the same order of magnitude of damage, so they are more or less in good agreement. And I have to notice here that, well, I have to say that the last sample, these green triangles, corresponds to a sample that was measured using the DIC technique instead of the extensometer. And again, we can see that the trend the results follow is similar, and the order of magnitude is the same, but it's again noisy, and well, while for the extensometer this noise could be reduced, improving the attachment system, with the DIC it would be difficult because this is the inherent noise that the DIC technique introduces, and therefore this technique is probably not accurate enough to measure modulus. And finally, these are the results of the indentation technique. So what I have done here is I have taken one of the samples of the previous slide after fracture, and I have taken just this part near the fracture section. I have cut the sample and I prepared it, and I have performed indentations in the longitudinal direction of the sample, starting from fracture section. And in this plot, what we have here is the distance to fracture section in the x-axis, so this distance, starting from fracture here. Here we can observe that the hardness is much higher in the fracture section, and then hardness decreases. This is due to the high density of dislocations in the fracture region, caused by the high level of plastic strain there in the necking region. And then I have used the Oliver Farr method to transform the indentation results into elastic modulus and damage. And here we can observe damage, again, as a function of distance to fracture section. And we can observe that damage is much higher than with the other technique near the fracture section, about 0.43. But the interesting thing here is that if we consider the position where the extensometer was placed in the other technique, which is more or less here at about 6 millimeters, and we read the damage, we can observe that the damage is about 0.22, which is more or less the value I obtained with the other technique. So these two techniques are in quite good agreement and could be used in a combined manner. So just to conclude, I have to say that hourglass shape specimen geometries are appropriate for damage characterization because specimens have failed in the pit section and we have successfully concentrated damage there. Elastic modulus technique with small extensometers gives consistent results for round samples, not so good results for flat samples when the results were much noisier, but probably caused by the measurement system. The AC technique is probably not accurate enough for damage measurement, and the results obtained with elastic modulus and indentation are in good agreement and could be used in a combined manner. And finally, I would like to do, as a next step of the project, some SEM observation to validate the damage phenomena I have observed. So, yeah, thank you very much for your attention.